Elliotte Friedman chimes in on the Thatcher Demko dilemma along with some other info that might make Canucks fans want to prepare for the worst. And we have quotes from Thomas Drance and Rick Dhaliwal on the Canucks 2025 game plan and more follow on the Vasily Podkolzin trade. We'll be breaking down all of that in this episode of Canucks Digest. First, make sure to hit that subscribe button and click the bell icon so you don't miss any updates surrounding the Canucks this offseason. With that, let's hop into the first topic of the day, which is the Demko timeline. In a recent interview, Elliotte Friedman did touch on if he wonders if Demko did push himself too hard to meet that Canucks target timeline of playing at the end of the regular season. What does that mean for the future? Well, he went a step further, saying that no one is really sure about his timeline. The Canucks wanted Demko, who was recovering from injury, to play preferably twice before last year's playoffs, so they knew if they could count on him. He made those two appearances and won Game 1 versus Nashville, then broke down and did not return to the playoffs. It wasn't an unreasonable request, but did Demko, like any athlete would, push himself too hard to hit that target? And what does that mean for his future? And as far as his future goes, he did go a step further, saying he does wonder if this impacts Demko's workload with the stepping down of Ian Clark moving from the head goalie coach to a scouting position. And it is seeming like very odd timing where all the Demko developments and the procedures and this information that's coming out and Ian Clark stepping down, it's all happening around the same time. So it's a matter of what is smoke and mirrors, what is going to happen. And obviously we know the stuff with Clarky, that is concrete, that's all happening. But is that trying to distract us from the bigger picture at hand here with Thatcher Demko? There's going to be multiple other information that we're going to get into in a second, but isn't unlikely to conclude that he did push himself too far going into the end of the regular season and the postseason, where we've seen guys play through partially torn meniscuses, partially torn ACLs, and partially broken bones, or just overall broken bones, broken ribs. They've powered through it through the postseason because they just want to get to the offseason, worry about it then, and then have them tuned up for next season. But if they're in the postseason, they want to contribute while they can and go till they can't go no more. And that seemed to have been the case with Demko, where he did play those last two games of the regular season. He did play that one postseason game, but then the wheels just fell off and the engine just broke down. They had to just bring him to the shop for repairs. It's seeming like those repairs were probably a bit more than they were leading on, and that any reports that they had or indication that Demko could have played in that second round against Edmonton or in Game 7, I think that was all just gamesmanship. I think there was no chance of him ever having played in those games, especially when getting into what we're going to get into in a second. We do have a quote here from Thomas Drance and Rick Dhaliwal saying that multiple league sources have indicated to The Athletic that Demko won't be ready for training camp and preseason games. The club is hopeful that his Vezina Trophy finalists will be available to play on opening night, but even that seems to be in question at this late stage in the summer. This is very concerning. I am very much terrified to see if he, as far as playing in the preseason, that's one thing, but having it for opening night I think will be big, especially playing against the Edmonton Oilers. If not, it'll be a revenge game for Sheloff to just get revenge on those pesky Oilers and the rest of the Canucks as well, getting revenge on the Oilers. But if Demko is ready to go for that game, that would be a big statement to have your Vezina trophy nominated trophy goalie in the net for that opening night. Would be amazing to see. But it is very concerning that all these reports are saying that he might not even be ready for the preseason, or for opening night could be a potential possibility. And one of the other possibilities that makes me even more fearful is this tweet from Dr. Harjas Grewal from BC. He was working in some of the hospitals over there. He is doing a Twitter account this season where he's going to be covering multiple NHL injuries to give fans a bit of a better insight that the other teams and the news outlets might not be giving. A real medical guy giving background on it. But he did say nobody has been able to confirm, but lots of media sweared earlier that Demko had a torn ACL, and if he had that surgically repaired, would be a 5+ month recovery in a best case scenario, and most often longer, as we've seen in multiple athletes and across multiple sports. Those are the three letters you never want to hear in sports: ACL, MCL, PCL. Those three letters, you don't want to hear anything associated with those. And if that is the case with Thatcher Demko, oh boy, this could be trouble, because if we have no Demko for opening night or the first month, that could be a big thing as far as setting the tone for this season. You want to have your all-star goalie between the pipes for those games, to have that season kicked off, to start off on the right way, set the tone. We're going to set the tone as far as our forwards and defensemen go, but we have to set the tone in goal. So that is going to be a big thing if we don't have Demko back for that. But if it's an ACL, recovery off of those is a pain. So he's going to have to come off of an ACL that nobody apparently knew about. It would put him on track for the timeline of the 5+ months where he could be ready for the earlier part of the season. But if it is possible that it is an ACL and he pushed himself through that ACL as well, this is very concerning as far as him being ready for the early stage of the season, potentially looking at the middle stage of the season in a worst case scenario, it seems like, because it seems like it just is we don't know if it's a groin injury. We don't know if it's an ACL. We don't know what it is, but it seems like there's multiple reports coming out as to what it possibly could have been. ACL, this is the first time I'm reading about a possible ACL. As far as I've been seeing, it's been a lot of groin stuff, but I'm not sure if this is going to mean what it could mean as far as ACL. I'm hoping it's not. Again, I'm freaking out a little bit just because those are the three letters you never want to hear in sports, as far along with Achilles, meniscus, and all the other things. So this is very concerning as far as that goes. But if you don't have him there, you put him on LTIR, you open up enough cap space to go and get a guy like Martin Jones. However, there have been reports saying that Martin Jones has retired. So if that is the case, the only other logical explanation would be Antti Raanta from Finland. He's been around the league for quite some time. He's been around some teams. He's been on some bad teams, but he's also been on a good Carolina Hurricanes team. He did have some stints in the OHL and the AHL, as well as the NHL and the AHL last season. So he has been bounced around a bit there, but he would be a good one to bring in either on a PTO contract, or if you just bring him in full time to have that replacement and have that backup for Shilovs, where you can run these two guys and be reliable until Demko does come back later on in the season. So if you can run that guy and have him on a two-way contract potentially with Abbotsford as well, that would be interesting to see as well. Again, Martin Jones could be retired, so I'm not going to dwell too much on him if he's an untouchable person just because he's enjoying the greener pastures of retirement. But if we can get a guy like Raanta, I think that would be really good as far as putting him in with Shilovs, having Demko have that extra rest and extra surety that he can be ready to be, he can come back whenever he is ready. So that would be nice not to rush his recovery in that sense. And you have a guy who is a veteran. He's been around for a while. He's been around some teams. He's been around some environments. So if you can bring him into an environment like Vancouver, where it's a very welcoming environment, players want to play here, I think he'd have no problem adjusting to this team, this city, and this system. So let us know what you guys think down there. Do you guys think Demko's injury is as bad as we think it might be? Do you guys think it could be ready for opening night? Let us know what you guys think down in the comments below. And what do you think about Martin Jones or Antti Raanta? What do you guys think about us bringing them in? Would you like to see them in a Vancouver Canucks jersey? Let us know down below. And that's going to take us into the second topic of the day, which is Thomas Drance and Rick Dhaliwal quotes. And we saw here in The Athletic that there's some quotes that were pulled from Buck Foston from The Athletic article because it is a paid article. But as it stands, the club plans to enter the season outside of LTI, which does make a bit of a case for that Demko statement. For Canucks management, Plan A remains to be to accrue salary cap space throughout this upcoming campaign for the purpose of maximizing cap flexibility at the 2025 trade deadline. We've seen Vancouver make a lot of moves like this at the trade deadline. Last year, they went out and got Elias Lindholm and Nikita Zadorov, so we could potentially see another trade deadline move where Vancouver does make that move. However, with Thatcher Demko's injury status in question, it does make you wonder if he's going to go on to LTIR. It could free up space to go get a guy that you can bring in and make sure that this team is bolstered down in every aspect. You're not having a guy jump up from the AHL hoping that he's going to be ready like Shilovs was, but not everyone is going to be like Artur Shilovs. They're not always going to be ready to make that jump to the NHL. So that is going to be interesting as well. What will they do as far as LTIR is concerned? We've seen a lot of teams take advantage of that, like the Vegas Golden Knights, like the Tampa Bay Lightning. So Vancouver could be one of those teams that just cashes in on this fluke before the NHL comes in and reprimands it and makes sure that teams can't take advantage of it. But it'll be interesting to see if Vancouver does go that route and makes that approach. Another thing that I thought was interesting was a couple of names still out there that Canucks have not shown interest in: Nick Cousins and Milan Lucic. Milan Lucic, understandable. He played for Boston most of his career. He was a thorn in Vancouver's hip, and he is going to be a bit older. But Nick Cousins is the one that does stand out to me a bit, especially when we covered him a few days ago and said how he would be a great fit on this Vancouver team. He does have a very cap-friendly salary hit, or cap hit, and he does have that experience. He's fresh off a cup, and he is that agitator that you can have at center and bolster down the center, down the middle, where you can run three solid centers and have a fourth line where you might not have the strongest center, but you have a guy with Nick Cousins where he can play on that third and fourth pairing and be a dominant force, also physically and on the point sheet when you need him to get there, especially if you pair him with a guy like Dakota Joshua and Connor Garland. I, for one, would love to see that. I think they would just wreak havoc on teams, and it would be amazing to see. But it would be interesting to see what they're going to do as far as pre-agents. We've talked about it at length before about who's still available, who Vancouver could go get, who works for their cap. But again, we're not going to know until it actually happens. This is all just speculation at this point. However, Nick Cousins is definitely one that I think Vancouver should be looking at as far as bolstering down that center position. We got the wings covered. We're deep at the wings. We're good on defense for the most part. If anything, we go out and get one or two more defensive guys. But that center position, having that third center right there and reliable. I know Teddy Bluger is awesome awesome. But if you can bring in a guy like Nick Cousins, where Teddy Blueger and Nick Cousins are there, that would be awesome. Just seeing those guys on the ice together for the Canucks, I would love to see it. Let us know what you guys think down below. Another person that Thomas Drance and Rick Dhaliwal did touch on was Vasily Podkolzin. They knew the club wouldn't know if he would clear waivers if he didn't land a job amongst Vancouver's top 13 forwards at camp. The decision was made to move him now for a 4th-round pick, as opposed to risking losing him on waivers or accepting the sort of lowball offer from a club intent on jumping the waiver queue closer to Canadian Thanksgiving. This was something that a lot of fans kind of were speculating was, well, he wasn't going to clear waivers anyways, might as well go out and get something for him while you can. That was exactly what Vancouver did. And with that 4th-round pick, it was burning a hole in the pockets of the Canucks operations leadership. It's ammunition and asset that's already been pretty explicitly marked as something that the club will look to use to improve during this season. So they have ideas. They know what they want to do. They have a plan. They're going to go out and execute. We just got to let them cook. Let Patrik Allvin and the team do what they want to do. Vasily Podkolzin was a player that I was one of those people who wasn't always the biggest fan of him, so it was understandable to see him go. There was a lot of fans who really did like him. I never saw the hype and never bought into the hype, and it seems like Vancouver didn't either, so they moved on from him and got what they could from him while they could. And it was nice to see that they didn't get nothing for him. They did get a 4th-round pick. Again, this is a guy who was drafted early on in the draft when he was drafted, but diminishing returns, diminishing value as far as what you can get for him. So that was what they had to do on that. Let us know what you guys think down below as far as the Vasily Podkolzin fallout. Do you guys still think it was a great move moving on for him? Would you rather have seen him back in Vancouver? Let us know what you guys think down below. But that's going to bring us to everyone's favorite topic, which is comment of the day. We see here in a comment from Check D where Demko to LTIR. That's something that we talked about early on in this video, where Demko could be going to LTIR. I don't know if Vancouver is going to do that, especially considering what their plan is going into 2025. But with this monkey wrench being thrown in as far as Thatcher Demko and the value that you can clear up in LTIR space if you have to move him, or in cap space if you have to move him to LTIR, I think it opens the door for Vancouver to go out and really get a guy on a good rental potentially for a little bit of time until Demko's ready to come back. But let us know what you guys think down below. But that's going to do it for this episode of Canucks Digest. I've been your host, Griffin. Take care.